Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for clicking on the video. Hopefully, if you enjoy it, you'll consider subscribing and liking. And hopefully, you'll let me know what you thought about this one. We're going to get into 90 Day Fiancé, The Other Way, Season 5, Episode 5, My So-Called Wi-Fi. I wonder what this could be about. Well, we will get to that later. First, I'm going to go ahead and get it over with and start off with Danielle and Johan. Her friends just got there yesterday and they finally got to meet him and it went well. The friends are walking up to the pool and the one friend says, "What a life." And sometimes I just think they're kind of jealous of how she gets to live because they don't get to do that. But anyways, Johan thinks that her friends are, good, happy people. And he says in English, "How was your day at the beach?" And that is so awesome. He's learning. He's picking it up. Everyone cheered for him. Her friends definitely got some sun, and they did not use sunblock because they're definitely very red. So, Danielle was nervous for them to meet, but Johan, he feels happy and comfortable with them. They get some beers, they do a cheers. And the friends are like, "You're married now, you have a dog. Have you thought about kids? Are they ready for that?" Danielle says, yeah, like she wasn't ready at 21 when she had her fabulous child. And, right now she feels like she still has the energy to have a kid or two. But she's not sure that she will in a couple years from now. She should know that a couple years from now is when they're going to be the most energetic and difficult. So she says that before Johan, she didn't think she wanted another child. Her son is 22. She was leaving that stage of her life. But knowing how bad Johan wants a child and she just felt like it was something she could get on board with. He says that he wants 2 kids. And also he thinks if they're like intimate every day, that's the best way to have a kid. And then he kind of just says, he wants it every day, but she doesn't. So he just tells her, let me know when you want it, because he's always ready and willing. Danielle says that they have been trying naturally since before they got married and it hasn't worked out. So that's good news. Yikes. And, anytime she has any kind of pregnancy symptom, a tummy ache, mood swings, tenderness, stuff like that, he's asking her like if they're going to have a baby. He just thinks that they have to be patient because God's the one who sends you children. She wants to go the medical route because, she knows that she could pay for it and still fail, but it's a better chance than just by themselves. She says, a year ago they went to a fertility clinic. They told her her eggs were running low. And, she just has a slim chance of getting pregnant. If she tries naturally, there's about a 5% chance. And she knows that, most women over 40 have a hard time getting pregnant. She just thought she had more time. But at this point, she feels that they're past trying it naturally and, they're probably going to have to use an egg donor. The friends ask him if he's comfortable using an egg from another woman. And he's like, well, they have an appointment to see what the doctor recommends and the cost and all of those things. Sure, we'll be seeing that in the future. The friend's like, so if that happens, it'll cost a lot. And, she just wants to make sure they have a plan because she's a planner. And, there's just a lot happening since Danielle got there. She's trying to plan her life. She already struggled as a single mom. So, she's learned what not to do. And they just need more stability, not just financially, but also in their relationship. Because they're still getting to know each other. Lizette is her name. She's off in the interview saying, This is really high stakes. They got married really fast. Everything moved really fast. And she hasn't even been in the DR for a year. And they tell her, you know, having a child in your 40s is different than your 20s and 30s. And it's like, well, duh, you know, but I guess they're just trying to point it out. Sandra says that, you know, for her, it's the stability, not just emotionally, but money. And it's alarming that he had 2 jobs and now he has 0 jobs. So, you know, the friends are just like, well, you guys have a lot to think about. You need to have your own private conversation together. And, you know, that was that for that part. Later, the vacation squad is all in the car. They're going to go meet Johan's family at the river. And Danielle's talking about testing the water before she gets in because she takes her pH balance very seriously. And she says how that means her flora and fauna are maintained. And they start laughing, but, you know, Danielle's serious. I don't think that's what pH balance means, but maybe. I blanked out a little bit when they were talking, but when I came to, Johan was saying that, you know, going to the river is a Dominican pastime. It just helps them get out of their day-to-day lives. And, you know, he knows that Danielle doesn't like to go, but it's important to him. So, you know, they arrive there. Everyone, his family's in the water. They're playing. Her friend's like, oh, I just want to jump in. And Danielle's old snotty self is like, I just want to not do that. You know, but there's a cow right there, so maybe that's why. And the one friend freaks out about the cow. And the other friend's like, what's wrong with you? It's a wild animal. And she's like, I got doo-doo under me. And just them talking about the cow was funny. It made me laugh. So they show up, they get up the hill. They say hi to Johan's family. He gets there and the family's like, Johan always has the bottle, haha. So they were teasing him and it was fun. Danielle says Johan has 20 people in his family and she just loves how much they love each other. And it's also really cute to see him interact with his nieces and nephews. So I think that's also another part of why she wants to have a kid with him, because for some of us, when we see men like so good with children, our ovaries start doing that thing where you want to have a baby with them. I think that's what it is. So they're joking. They ask the family, you know, when did Johan start to grow and when did he stop? And they're like, yeah, he was born like this. And it was funny. And then we find out he was 12 pounds at birth. And Danielle's like, I can't have your babies. Ha ha. Making a joke. Like that would be the deciding factor here. So her friends felt right at home with his family. They were so welcoming. And, you know, this feels like the paradise she's used to. She's Puerto Rican and they know that Rios are just as wonderful as the beaches. So they all sit down and talk, and they say they want Johan's family to adopt them. And they also ask, sorry, there's a fly attacking me. They want Johan's family to adopt them. And they also ask Danielle if she could see her future kids over there playing with the others. And she says, yeah, but it's hard because, like, where she grew up, there were beaches and stuff, but here they don't have, like, t-ball and soccer and music and art classes. But she loves it there. She wants to have children with Johan, and she wants them to have fun and play. And, you know, leisure time like the kids in his family have. But also structure, education, and, like, the discipline she's used to. They point out how happy all the kids are. And, you know, she says she knows that Johan will be the fun dad and she'll be the disciplinarian. So she just wants them to be on the same page about how they're going to raise kids. She's talking about this like she's not that way with him. Like he's the fun person and she's kind of the drill sergeant lady, dragon lady, whatever you want to call it. I do like her friends. I think, it made it a little more bearable to watch her. But it was also a short segment, so she didn't have time to be too terrible. I do hope that if they genuinely want a baby, that it works out for them. Because, babies are awesome. But it's hard for me to, give her any, benefit of the doubt, sympathy. I just don't believe her. I just don't. So, anyway, that was Danielle and Johan. We're going to move on to Julio and Kirsten. They're in the car, and this guy is going to sit there and ask her if she had fun at the Halloween party. She did for a second until he was saying he doesn't want to live with her. He's like, it was just an option. And she tells him he was talking a lot about something that's just an option. She's still upset about the party, how it went. The whole plan was for her to come to New York, get to know more about him, meet his family, etc. Instead, she just got surprises. He didn't tell his family about her. Now he brings up living separate. And, he says it's just an option. But then he goes to pass the blame on to Vincent. Well, Vincent brought it up. But, Kirsten was there and she's like, he didn't bring it up. He only said, what if you have fights, you have nowhere to go. He just has a different perspective of how the conversation went. But he said that she gave him an ultimatum. And she did at the end there. Either they live together or that's it. And he doesn't want to lose her. And, he just looks like a kid who has to apologize. And he's like, I take it back. And he's sorry that he ruined the night. So I do think that Vincent brought it up first, but he jumped on it so quickly she might have forgot. I can't remember. But I think it was Vincent's idea. But I also remember saying that I think Julio told him that ahead of time. They were planning this. So, anyway, she's, still hurt. And even though he tells her he wants to live with her, she doesn't believe it. Everything's weird right now. The way he's acting, what he's saying. She's leaving back to the Netherlands tomorrow. So she's trying to make the best of the last day. He's taking her to one of his favorite breakfast spots. In his interview, he's saying, he always wanted to leave the United States. He knew it wasn't going to be his forever home. But now she's there and the move is so soon and everyone's reaction is making him second guess his decision. He loves her, but they're moving fast. And ever since she got here, things have not been smooth. But he also knows that this trip has been hard for her because of everything that, has been thrown at her. And he really did all of that to himself. It's not fast. He's feeling that way because he didn't tell anybody. It was a big secret. Now it feels fast because he's telling them he has a girlfriend and he's moving the country at the same time. Instead of a year ago saying he has a girlfriend. The summer saying he was going to be gone for 2 months. Slowly leading it up to it. But he's just facing his own, cowardice, inability to tell the truth. And he's not deciding what he wants at all. He's definitely a flip-flopper when it comes to making decisions. But either way, Julio has some concerns and he needs to sit and think about what he needs to do moving forward. They sit down for breakfast. She gets salmon Benedict. He's asking her what it's like having potatoes for breakfast. She says it's weird. Also, he explains the hollandaise sauce to her barely. She tries it. She likes it. He asked, what food she liked best there, and she said the pizza. And he's like, yeah, the number one thing he's going to miss is the pizza when he moves. She's like, we could take the train to Italy if you want pizza. And I'm like, listen, if he doesn't want to live with her, I volunteer. I can help. I don't have OCD. I won't get mad. He's like, that's not the same. And she's like, Italian pizza is the best. But, it's not New York pizza. And he's like, well, you can't see yourself living here at all. And, he likes the idea of her coming for a couple months. She just says no. She doesn't want to live here. Like, how many times does she have to tell him this? She asks him where he's coming from, or she asks him where this is coming from, and he says he's talking about her coming for longer so she can spend time with his family and get to know him. He's going to be giving up a lot, food, family, friends, his culture. And, maybe there's a way they could spend time in both places. But it's hard because he already committed to it and he feels like the train has already left the station. He didn't think things through. And they have also been fighting and arguing more, so he has a lot to think about. They're fighting and arguing because of his actions. He needs to think about growing up, being able to say what he wants. If he doesn't want to live there, he needs to tell her, And he's like, Mr. Non-accountability. I didn't bring it up. Vincent brought it up. Well, I wanted to be sure before I told them. Oh, so you weren't sure? Well, I was sure. He doesn't fess up to none of his stuff. She asked him, do you still want to move to the Netherlands? He says, yeah. Why? And she's like, because you want me to come here so bad. He's like, you can't make this. He says, if you can make this, meaning the eggs Benedict, over there, and she's like, then he'll be happy to move. She says she'll try. He tells her if she can do it, then, she gets him. But he has to at least come back for his food fix. Then she's like, he always wanted to move to the Netherlands, and now he doesn't seem confident. He makes it seem like he's an adventurous guy who travels the world, but now he's coming up with silly excuses like food to not leave the U.S. She asks him why he's so worried about the food. He didn't complain once about the food in 2 months that he was there, and now suddenly he wants her to come here for 2 months just for the food. He's like, no, it's not just about the food. She can come here and experience it a little bit. She knows it isn't just the food. First he didn't tell his mom about her or that he was moving. Then he brings up living separately. Now he wants her to stay there 2 months. She's, not sure what's going on, but she's concerned about their relationship and what's going to happen after she leaves tomorrow. And that's fair. She should be worried. He is not being honest with her or anybody. And I think, in that he's going to lose her. That's his own fault. Hopefully this is a big learning lesson for him. Because when you don't communicate with the person you're with, it's just going to blow up in your face. Or if you hide things from your family, it's just going to blow up in your face. Honesty is the best policy. That's a saying for a reason. All right, guys, get your tissues again because we get to continue with Kenny and Armando's story from last week. So it's the night after Armando's discussion with his mom. And, he says even though he was allowed to get a lot off his chest, there was things that were left unsaid. So they go to a restaurant to get coffee. He said, some things about the past and how he felt back then, he held back because Hannah was there, which is wonderful parenting, honestly. He tells her, she said that it seems like he wants to hurt her, but it's not that. He left San Felipe because he didn't feel supported. He went through a lot in that year. He came out. Hannah's mom passed away. And, he knows it was a hard year for his mom, but she doesn't think or imagine how hard it was for him. And in his interview, he says, he hated himself because he wasn't who his parents wanted him to be. He tried to do things, to pray the gay away, basically, and it didn't work. and he always wondered why it wasn't going away. He tells his mom that at the time he didn't want to live anymore, and, he thought about how he could stop doing that. Poor Armando, he's crying in his interview, and he needs to stop. He needs a moment. And it's hard, to remember times like this when you hated yourself and how low you were. But it's good for him to be working through it, as that's the only way to let it go. So, he never wanted to cause Hannah or his mom pain because that was all he lived for. Hannah was the light in his dark moments. Man, kids are amazing at doing that. She's his little savior and she doesn't even know it. But she'll know one day. I have a little savior myself. Oh. So anyway, before I start crying again, the mom does say that she regrets not noticing what he was going through. But, he knows that she loves him. She's like sobbing and she hugs him and she says she's sorry and that she's glad he was so strong and he was able to pull through on his own. Not a dry eye in this house. Whew. It's sad for her, like, now to realize he was so depressed and she can't even imagine him hurting himself in that way. She tells him that she's going to support him and he says he knows, but, does he? Like, I think she's going to have to show him that. But anyways, he wants them to leave that in the past. He thanks her for coming and she thanks him for the invite. He tells her, he enjoys it there, but he knows that there are risks. She's like, well, it seems nice now because you're on vacation. And he tells her he thinks of Kenny. He has to think of what he wants because he has made changes to be there with him. And he does feel like there are more opportunities for Hannah, like sports and activities. Where he lives, they can't do that. All those things are really far away. And she says, if you think it's better for Hannah, for her future, and all of that, then go ahead. He says that he always let his mom's fear hold him back, and now there's no excuse. He needs to make a decision and decide, if he wants to live there. He tells her they need a change, they want to do more and do more with Hannah, and he wants a baby. And, that's one of the main reasons that he's there is to go to the surrogacy clinic, and that's going to be the convincing factor for him. So mom and son walk out arm in arm, and I think that was much needed for them. It was very therapeutic watching it. I felt so sad for him that he had to go through that. I'm not exactly like part of that community, but I've been severely depressed in my life, and it is hard when you don't have anyone to lean on. So that was that for this week. Poor Armando. He needed it. I hope he feels much better. I'm not excited to see them fight about this baby thing because I totally see both sides of it. Like, I understand why Kenny wouldn't want to go that route. But anyway, I think we'll get to talk about that next week. So until then. All right, guys, I want to talk about Brandon and Mary. It is time. What a glorious day. It's the first time Brandon and Mary are waking up together. She brings him a water. He tells her he slept okay. And, the roosters are just crowing outside, cock-a-doodle-dooing outside. He says, last night was his first time sleeping with her. For a couple reasons, she made them sleep head to toe. And they, had always talked about their first night, and it was so much different than he was thinking it would be. He tells her, it was hard to sleep facing the wall, and he woke up to pee during the night, and he asked her where she went, and she went and slept outside by the TV because, he was kicking her in the head. And he's like, well, maybe next time our heads can be on the same side. He says that, her going to sleep somewhere else is uncomfortable for him because he feels like she isn't comfortable. So he thinks something is wrong with him because they've been talking for 2 years. And, she asks him if he's okay. He says he is, but he isn't. I remember my therapist told me one time that if someone asks if you're okay and you say you are and you really aren't, then that's lying. And I was like, I guess you're right. I don't like to lie, so. He asks if she's okay, and she says she is. He thinks she seems nervous, but, she says she isn't. He then asks if before they eat, if he could take a bath, and she's going to go and boil him some water so he can do that. She can feel that he's disappointed that she slept in another room, but things are just different in person, and she doesn't want to be intimate. She's shy. All of this is new. But, he's adjusting too, and she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. He's taking his shower with a bucket and a cup, and, he's like, this isn't bad. I could get used to it. I mean, at least the water's warm. They have chicken adobo for breakfast, and she feeds him, and, he really likes it. He could probably feed himself. The one bite is cute, but after that, he just looks like a toddler. But I guess she's doing it to make up for last night because she does appreciate him. And she also wants him to get chubby because then he is huggable. He thinks it's sweet that, excuse me, he thinks it's sweet that she wants to keep meat on his bones, but he just can't chew or swallow fast enough for her. She's just shoveling it in, bones and all. So he asks her what she wants to do today, and they're going to farm with Grandpa. He's going to teach Brandon, and Brandon needs to listen to him. He says okay as she's still shoveling giant mouthfuls into his mouth. And all that rice must be dry. Give this man a sip of water. She says, it's important for him to learn to farm because that's how they eat. And also the grandpa needs to see that he's man enough to farm. He asks her if they should tell Grandpa that they did kiss at the airport. Her eyes get real big, so that's a no. And he's like, well, if you're up for it, I am. She doesn't want to tell him. He's going to get mad. He kind of chuckles, but I can tell she got real anxious when he brought it up. He's like, I want to be honest with him about the kissing, and he doesn't want to walk around on eggshells. He thinks he would prefer the truth and respect him more for telling him the truth. She's like, he's always mad. He's like, well, he was nice last night. She's like, yeah, that was last night. And he's like, well, at least when he gets mad, I'm here. And she doesn't have to deal with it alone anymore. He can defend her and stick up for her. She thinks Brandon doesn't understand how strict her Lola is. He doesn't want to bring shame on the family, and he always makes sure that there's consequences for rule breaking. She doesn't tell Brandon that, though. He's like, so are we going to tell him about the kissing thing or not? And she's like, can we just see how the farming goes? I don't understand why he doesn't just ask for permission to kiss her and be done with it. Brandon's over there. He's grabbing his boots to get ready to go to work on the farm. And Mary's like, you don't need those. And he's like, well, I'd rather have the boots on. And she's like, okay. And lets him. So, whatever. He says they need to work and learn to run the farm so they can eat and live. And he can gain Grandpa's respect. And, he can trust that Brandon can take care of them in the future. When she told him that they were going to work on the farm for the day, he expected trimming branches, harvesting fruit or something. Maybe cleaning up after the animals. I don't know. But he asked Mary what Lolo's doing, and he's preparing the mud for the rice. He's riding this like wooden tiller type thing behind the carabao. And that's just not what Brandon was expecting. He had no idea what he was signing up for. He tried to get over there to help, and the first step, he sinks right in, gets stuck in the mud. And, good thing he brought those boots. Grandpa kind of comes over to help him, and, they had to leave the boots behind. Mary's trying to pull them out, but, they're stuck. I don't think they're coming out. And she did tell him he didn't need them. It's probably why she didn't argue, because he was going to find out why. So he's trying to ask Lolo how it works. He's trying to show him with pointing because they can't communicate. Mary says, she wishes she could help him, but Grandpa doesn't let her prepare the mud. That's a man's job. She feeds the pigs and the chickens, and that's it. But finally they get Brandon up there. He's up and moving. He's holding his balance pretty well. He still has no idea what he's doing. He just grabbed the rope. He's trying to ask what to do. But again, they don't speak the same language. He's just letting out groans and tongue clicks, and the carabao listens, so he tries that out. But it's still going its own way. He doesn't know how to steer the thing, and he's also afraid of falling on his face. Into the cow's booty, or he's going to fall into the mud full of number 1 and 2. So then they interview Grandpa, and he says he thinks it's his first time doing work like this. And in his opinion, he is not suitable for it, but he'll keep teaching him. Mary tells him he did great, and I think he did great for sure. Like, I would have not even done it, but if I'd done it, I would have fallen. So she's really happy that he did it. It shows he respects the Grandpa and her. And then Mary asks Grandpa to go talk. He has her tell him that he really enjoyed working with him today. He tells him, you got stuck in the mud, but you did great. Then Brandon tells him he respects him as a man, and he wants him to respect him as one, and he wants to earn that. And Mary just translated as, he wants to prove to you that he's a real man. So she left most of that out. And he says, okay. And Brandon's like, part of being respectful is not keeping secrets. So maybe now's a good time we talk about kissing at the airport. And he just wants to do that so they can kiss again, I'm sure. She's like, you want me to say that to him? And he's like, well, I don't know how. She really doesn't want to. And he's like, well, you can translate. In her interview, she says she doesn't think that it's a good idea. He's going to be so mad at Brandon and ashamed of her. She's never lied to them, so if he wants to tell the truth, she's going to do what he wants. He says, as soon as they met, he hugged and kissed her. She tells him they kissed, and he says, and then there's silence. He's angry they haven't asked for the blessing. Then he has her tell him that he's sorry he kissed her. He doesn't want to disrespect them. So now he's asking for permission. He says they're going to allow it, but these two need to get married. So they strengthen their relationship. So she tells Brandon he has to marry her now because he already kissed her. Grandpa's like, plan your wedding because we're having it. Brandon's like, his full intentions are on marrying her and spending his life with her, but he just kissed her and now he has to marry her right away. Like, ask your partner about their culture. But he does thank, the Grandpa for understanding. He says he wants them to get to a place past the jealousy and insecurities and all that stuff. So they have a lot of work to do. When we see them later, Brandon's like dusting. Wait, before I get into this, how anticlimactic was them telling the Grandpa? I thought he would throw something, yell at her, throw her out of her own house. That's probably why he didn't, because he lives in their house. technically. Who knows? But he was just like, okay, well, now you're getting married. Like, oh, he's so angry. Anyway, Brandon's dusting. He's trying to clean up. He says he's been there a couple days now, so he's starting to settle in. And now he just wants to know they'll be in a healthy relationship before getting married. So they have a long way to go. Mary comes in to get him, and they're going to ride a trike to the beach. She tries to explain it, but I definitely wasn't picturing like what they got into. It was more of like a motorbike with a sidecar, kind of like the butler in the Aristocats when he kidnaps the kittens. That's what they're riding in, kind of. So they're gonna go meet her guy friends today, and I'm just like, oh, I can't wait for this. This is gonna be so satisfying. She says, you know, they're her longtime friends and they're important to her, so she wants them to meet. She's nervous, though, because they're all guys. And when he was in America, he didn't want her to hang out with them. So she agreed not to see them until he got here. But we all know that was a lie. So they get there first. They're waiting. He asks her if her friends are cool with him. She says they like him, but Pong doesn't like how he doesn't let her hang out with them. He says, well, does he know you don't let me hang out with friends? When I was in America, apparently he couldn't even have a guy friend because they might have girlfriends and things like that. And he didn't want her hanging out with guys that he didn't know. And she's like, well, I knew them before I met you, and you wanted new friends. You know, that doesn't make a difference to her, but it does to him. You know, Brandon's had a lot of temporary people in his life with his unstable upbringing, so I'm sure he's always used to new friends. She's lived in the same village her whole life. So she doesn't want to lose her friends because Brandon might get jealous or they don't get along. But finally the friends get there. They all sit. It's awkward. One of her friends hugged her, so I'm sure Brandon's heart jumped out of his chest when that happened. They sit down. Brandon says, hola, because, you know, he forgot where he was. And Mary's like, yeah, these are my friends. And Brandon's like, oh, this is awkward. And they all laugh. They say, you know, they get right to it. They know he's jealous of their friendship, but they want to meet him still to know that, you know, their best friend is safe and in a healthy relationship. They all start to eat pizza, and someone asks his plan for staying there. And he's like, you know, eventually he wants to marry Mary. And they ask the date, but they don't have one yet. The other friend is like, wait up, bro, let them get to know each other first. Mary tells Brandon he says he didn't want them to get married yet. And he's like, so soon, get to know each other first. Brandon tells them they are taking their time, and there is a lot of jealousy and insecurity to work through, but they know each other very well. Another guy's like, well, what things make you jealous? And he's like, well, I've been jealous of you guys before. And they're like, you know, you need to stop that attitude because they're all just friends. And he's like, well, if she went to the beach with you guys, there was no service, and she's out having fun, and I'm just not. I mean, he also couldn't go fishing. They're both toxic. He's like, you know, we don't hide secrets. And the guy's like, do you know that Mary unplugged her Wi-Fi and turned her phone off and came to hang out with us? Ah, boom. Yes, that was so satisfying. So, Brandon is stunned and shook, and before we get his reaction, we get Mary in her voiceover saying she doesn't know what to say because sometimes she does that, and she'll tell him that they have a power outage. And they're like, what you got to say about that, Mary? They just want them to trust each other. She says that she knows her friends always want the best for her, and they want them to be honest, but she's scared how Brandon's going to react. He looks at her and says, did you? And then they go to commercial and move on to the next couple. Typical. I've been waiting 5 episodes for this. So then finally, after listening to frickin' Danielle for 10 minutes, we get back to this. So he says, did you? And her friend's like, just tell the truth. She's like really nervous laughing, and she says, yeah. He's just thinking like, WTF. You know, if he did that to her, excuse me. Okay. If he did that to her, she would never forgive him. He's like, well, that explains a lot of the times you weren't on the phone when I'm asleep. And she's like, not all the time. And he's like, well, a lot of the time. She's like, sometimes we didn't do that. I just lost connection. He's like, you know, since I got here, not one singular power outage. She says, you see, her friends are sitting there. One looks overjoyed. The other looks concerned. The guy in the middle is the one Brandon has to worry about because he looks like, you just say one thing and I'm going to pounce on you. He says he doesn't want to make a scene in front of her friends, but she has trust issues too, and he didn't think she would be the kind of person to do that. Her friend's like, this is why you need to know each other first before a wedding or proposal. They don't want to ruin their relationship. They want them to have a happy, healthy relationship. And Brandon's like, well, you'd get mad at me if I turned off my phone. Like, she wouldn't let me hang out with girls or guys because guys have sisters or girlfriends or moms. She says, you know, sometimes they're fighting and she gets stressed out and she's stuck at home and needs someone to talk to, and she has them, so that's what she did. And she's like, I'm sorry. She's been friends with them since she was a kid and she can't throw them away. He's like, you said you had friends before me and I just wanted to have friends in general. I can't just isolate myself forever. And then she starts crying. So, of course, she's crying and he feels for her and he's wiping her tears. And she says she's sorry again. And he said, you know, if he did the same thing, she would be mad, especially with girls. So she feels so guilty to lie. But when they fight, she feels so crazy and stressed, and it's hard to be home doing nothing. Doesn't she think it's hard for him? Of course not. And, you know, he's sleeping, and it's hard for her to just be alone. Her friends are like, you both need to stop being jealous. He tells her, you know, he's here, they're going to stop fighting and overthinking or getting jealous or insecure. You know, if only it was that easy. And then he tells her not to cry and that he is sorry. For what? What is he sorry for? He didn't even yell at her. Nothing. I thought he was going to storm off. Nothing. He was like, I'm sorry, don't cry. Are you kidding me? I've been waiting for this. Nothing. So, you know, the friends say, as her friends, they're supporting them. He says now that he's there, you know, they're always together. He'll let her hang out with them and they can all hang out together. And they tell him to promise to stop being jealous. And she needs to too. He's hoping, you know, the jealousy goes away, but they both need to work on these issues together. And just how disappointing was that? He didn't get upset. He didn't get mad. He didn't storm off. He didn't flip a table. He didn't tell her friends none of the barely anything she does. Anticlimactic. I was so upset. I'm still not over it, clearly. Let me know how you felt about that. Between that and telling the grandpa about the kiss, nothing. Okay, guys, thank you for sticking around if you're still here. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here with Kimberly and Tajaswi. She is still sitting in the apartment crying, and TJ is back downstairs. He says, you know, earlier he tried talking things out with her, And they both have a habit of saying things cluelessly and without control. She had hoped they would be able to communicate and talk things through. She wants to have a beautiful life with him, but she thinks in a relationship there has to be mutual respect for each other. She doesn't feel respected. Here he goes back up the stairs with the flip-flops and socks. And, he walks back in. He says, "Hi and sorry." That he walked out because he thought it would go a wrong way and they needed to be able to just talk. He tells her, "You've been stuck in this room for 24 hours and maybe they should go for a walk and get some fresh air." And she agrees. That's probably a great idea. He says that when he gets frustrated, his first thought is to walk away. And it might annoy her, but it's better to talk with a peaceful mind. That's true. They go outside, they're walking. He's calm, he's ready to talk to her, try to understand her point of view. They have a seat on a little bench made of bricks. And he asks how she's feeling. She says, she's still upset. He's like, "Still?" It's like, "Well, yeah, he just walked away from her and she just wanted him to say he heard her." He says he gets really mad and full of rage and he needed to get away. She understands why he did it, but, maybe he could vocalize that, like, "Hey, I need a minute. I need to walk away. We'll talk about this later." That would make her feel better. She says that she knows that she gets aggressive and angry and she just cusses. She's not trying to cuss him out. He says he takes the words as literal meanings and hearing those words makes him aggressive. So, she's going to try to not cuss at him, especially when she's angry. And, she's also going to tell him when he's getting loud and if he could please tone that back. He says that makes sense. And, from his side, he's going to hear her when she says things. She feels like if they try to do these things, it's going to go smoother. She brings up that she knows moving in with his parents is important to him, or staying living with his parents. And, she wants to make that work. She thinks she can make the apartment feel more homey for her, but they need to at least get some glass on the windows. Our girl is out here freezing. And she needs a door for the bathroom. And he says, yeah, he needs time, and, she's there to check the quality now. He says, he knows they're both short-tempered, and what happened last night and how she reacted, his family is very tense about that. She just gave them all a bad impression, and they're not sure how the marriage will be, and he doesn't know what his brother's feeling right now. And she's like, well, gee, it wasn't their business to begin with. He's like, it's a mom and dad's business what happens to their son. And she's like, yeah, that's my issue, is the marriage is between me and you, and that's why she has an issue living with his family. They should be able to have their own fights. In her interview, she says, like, his whole family being upset worries her, and this is making it more clear that she can never have a private argument with him. The whole family is always going to be involved. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and let my mom know that you're okay and everything's settled and that they talked. He does appreciate her respecting his feelings about wanting to live with them. And she's like, well, does it make you happy? He says, he's happy with her and his life, and he knows that she loves him too. Now she feels like everything is okay between them, but not her and his family. And she knows that it's going to be tough, but she's willing to do it. She loves him. She wants to get married and have this, wonderful life together. I will say that this is the farthest we've seen an American woman get with the Indian man's family. We've never seen him get to this part. So, back home, TJ tells us he talked to his mom earlier because it was all very disrespectful to all of them. His mom is worried about it, but they accept the relationship. They know that he loves her. He says 7 days before the wedding, they start doing rituals for it. And, I think that's what we're starting to see here. He went to go get Kim. Despite the fighting last night, his family's excited because it's exactly 1 week to the wedding. And they start with the Ganesha Puja ceremony. Ganesh is the elephant-headed Hindu god of beginnings, and he has the power to make your marriage work. If you praise them, he'll be so happy and say his blessings are with you. So his mom and some married women are making a likeness of him today with soil, cow dung, and turmeric. The mom says, making the trunk is very important, and they're making him with the intentions of having a good ceremony. He gets Kim, and, he gets her thing to cover her shoulders. It's like a shawl type thing. She has no idea how the wedding will go. All she knows is it's a traditional Hindu wedding. He tells her it's a very big function, and it's kind of like a Mario game. You have to pass the levels, and then when you get to level 4, you can get married. It's a tough job to marry him. So mom says that Kim is like her own child, and they made a room for her, but she didn't like it. But creating a ruckus about it isn't okay. She's looking at Kim's face, and she can tell she knows that mom is mad at her. But it's not right to keep bringing it up, and she's wishing them blessings. They sit her down. They start dressing her up. She has an interview saying she doesn't know what she's walking into. Just that since they had this argument, she's feeling super uncomfortable with his family. She did send his mom a text earlier to apologize for yelling and disrupting the peace. So they give her money in a box, and she's telling her what to say, but I'm not sure she understands. She's not sure how the family really feels about the marriage or how she's going to make living there work. She just feels like it's a ticking time bomb. It's real good to ignore those. But they clap and they namaste, and that's that. Next time we see them, TJ is combing his hair in his very luxurious bathroom before he goes back upstairs to get Kim. She is in a very beautiful yellow and pink dress. It matches his yellow shirt. She's not sure she wrapped it right. She's asking him for help, but neither of them have a clue. So they hope for the best. She says this morning they had the Ganesh Puja, and tonight they're going to have a celebration. She doesn't know what it's called, and she doesn't really know what's going on, but she's just going to have fun. TJ says Ganesh loves celebrations, so tonight they invited the closest family members for singing and chilling and happiness. They have a drum called a tabla. You play it with your hand, and a harmonium. It's like a piano. Playing these makes Ganesh very happy, especially when you're making an effort to make him happy. Kim is still confused, but she's learning to go with the flow. Everyone's just smiling at her. They're feeding her every once in a while, handing her things. TJ gets up. He takes Kim outside. He says, they can't play the music after 10. But he wants to know if she likes all the fun they're having now. You can hear them having a good time inside. You hear the party going. He tells her he knows that she doesn't understand, but they're happy. And she's like, yeah, I can tell. He thanks her for everything she's doing for him. He knows that she's not that comfortable, but she's trying because she loves him. And she is uncomfortable, but it's important for her to learn his culture. They can't believe they're getting married in a week. He asks her if she's feeling good. She, says she loves him and she's excited to see how this goes. He asks her if she's looking at things between her and the family after she settles here. She's, trying her best to stay positive. She knows that everything is chaotic, and after they get married, it's going to hit her. She asks, what is she going to be expected to be doing on a daily basis? And he changes the subject and is like, it's not just you, it's me too. Now I'm not just a son, I'm a husband. Like, yeah, poor you. Now tell her she's going to be a traditional Indian housewife. So she's like, what does that mean? And he's like, I'll be scheduling the day-to-day things. And women do things different. They wake up early and do the housework and the food. And she's not like that. And she's like, yeah, no, that's for the birds. He's like, well, it's between you and my mom because you'll cook this meal at this time and she'll do it at a different time. And we'll have certain days we're doing the dishes or, she'll be doing them. She says that's way too scheduled for her and they've never talked about this stuff. He's like, that's just an example of how it could be. And then this coward gets in the interview and he says he can't tell her everything his parents expect because she's already worried about living there. He doesn't want to make her question the relationship. He says she might get mad eventually that he didn't tell her all this. But it wasn't needed because they love each other and they want to get married. Get married first and then talk about responsibilities. Like, first of all, can you be more selfish? And second, that is the way to be miserable your whole life when you don't talk about expectations with somebody. He says that Kim lived there before in her own home. She's seen how his family works. Not for long periods, but she's seen it. And, it might be hard, but it hasn't changed. And, he just makes no damn sense. Next time we see her, the wedding is 5 days away. She doesn't have bangles. They're part of a traditional Indian wedding attire. So she goes with his brother Yash since TJ's at work. She's uncomfortable because they haven't talked about the argument her and TJ had. She's, trying on the bangles, which are lots of bracelets. Her whole arm is bracelets. They're beautiful. They use a cool trick with a bag to put them on. And she picks some and they're off. She describes the relationship she has with his brother as cordial. They have similar personalities. They're both dominant. So they go and they have a nice little sit somewhere and he asks her how she's feeling being back here. He says, you're going to have a nice wedding and be a part of our family. How are you feeling? And she's like, yeah, I think I need to change a lot to be in the family. He's like, well, if they lived in America, they would live like her. And she's like, well, yeah, but it's still adapting to being in a whole different environment. TJ told me I can't eat garlic maybe one day a week. And, if she has pasta, she can't just make it. She has to check with them. She's like, that's a change. Not being able to do what I want. And, this is where I could see how she feels like no one listens to her. Because he's like, in our kitchen, it isn't allowed. Whatever we eat, we offer to Krishna. They have to offer God good food. They can't offer garlic and onions. She's like, I don't offer anything to Krishna. And he's like, no, I'm explaining to you why you can't have garlic and onions. And she's like, no, you're not understanding my point. I should be allowed to eat what I want. And someday if I want to eat meat again, what would happen? He's like, someday if you eat beef or pork, well, we can't say that you're in our family. She would be disowned and banished. And she's like, so I have to obey your rules for the rest of my life or I can't be in the family. He's like, well, if you do something opposed to our tradition, you're making it harder for TJ, not for us. It's harder for him. He's going to be in the middle. So TJ has to appease them and her. She's like, this is why I didn't want to live with you guys. He's like, what? She's like, I didn't. I'm only doing this for TJ. But this is not my first choice. And he's like, what did he do? Spend all his money to make a different floor for you to live? And she's like, yeah, I moved across the world. Well, he broke all the traditions and agreed to marry you. And she says she's sacrificed more than he has. The brother thinks TJ has. And she's like, he still gets to live with his family. And now he's like, well, let's not make a list of who's sacrificing what. She just wants him to understand that she's giving up a lot to live here. And it's just not ideal for her, period. They're gonna, they're doing a lot to let her live there, he says. They respect her traditions and her liberty. But she's like, but I can't cook garlic every day. And his head's gonna explode if she says garlic one more time. He's like, how tasty is it? And laughs. She says she has to draw the line here because if she doesn't, she's going to lose herself changing for other people. He says in India they don't have individuality and liberty and freedom. These are all Western things. And this is just how they make it work. She's like, so you can express yourself and have an opinion, but I can't. And he's like, yeah, exactly. That's how things work. She's like, okay, well, understand I was free, and now I'm here and I'm constricted. And he's like, well, who's stopping you from moving out? And she's like, well, I can't go with TJ right now, but if she could, she would. He's like, if Kim wants to be a part of this family, she has to let go of her big ego first. He's worried about the relationship because she isn't going to just fall in line, and that's going to hurt TJ. He's like, I'm telling you right now, you aren't staying temporarily. And she's like, how long am I staying? And he's like, with the family, stupid. She's like, did you call me stupid? He's like, you're showing stupidity. You're not understanding my words. She's like, you don't understand me. And you aren't speaking clearly. But don't you ever call me stupid. And, we always leave this girl mid-argument, so that's where that ends. I feel like her and the brother are going to hate each other. It's not going to be good. I think this is going to blow up shortly after they get married. I do think they'll get married because they're already midway through this ceremony. But he really needs to tell her what's expected of her because she can't even cook garlic. Or, from what it sounded like, she's not allowed to, just cook herself a snack if she wants. Like she said, if she wants pasta, she has to ask permission. So, if I wake up and I want eggs, I have to be like, is it okay if I cook eggs, everybody? I'm pretty sure I would hate that. I do like how Kim kind of, stands her own ground, even though, she wasn't right in the whole situation. Neither of them were right. They both just used each other as a punching bag. And then the brother acts just like TJ. Because he's not listening either. And then he just calls her stupid because she's not going to just fall in line with the family. And deep down he's upset because he's going to get a traditional Indian wife and she's going to have to take care of everything. So, yeah. And it sounds like eventually Kim wants to move out at least. She's like, I can't leave with him yet, which is kind of a threat, but at least she's thinking about it. Or she's going to spend her life miserable. So, that's it for this week of The Other Way. Let me know what you guys thought. Like I said, I am really enjoying this show, except this episode, I had issues with all this, build up. Like something was going to happen, and then it was so anticlimactic. And then at the end there, when, the brother calls her stupid, it's like, okay, next week. Next week. So, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you have a good day. Don't forget to take deep breaths and, go swimming or play in nature. Do something fun. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.